Hello and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where we dive deep into regional headlines. I speak with leading policymakers and business leaders. I am Katie Jensen. On this episode, we speak with Faisal Sultan, the Vice President and Managing Director of Lucid Middle East. We talk to him about EV adoption in the kingdom, Lucid's new challenges following its CEO's sudden exit, all as rival Tesla reportedly prepares to launch operations in Saudi Arabia. And as Lucid ramps up production in the kingdom, will Saudi be the decisive force that propels Lucid back to profitability? Mr. Sultan, thank you for joining us today on Frankly Speaking. Now, I will say our main focus in recent weeks, given everything that's going on in the region, has been mainly politics. I will say it's wonderful to have you in the studio and to really be able to get our teeth into an exciting business topic at the moment, particularly given the incredible innovation that Lucid is involved in. So thank you for stopping by.
Oh, glad to be here.
It's been a challenging, I think, year or so for Lucid. We saw some strong fourth quarter results come out recently. They beat analyst expectations, but of course, the company is still losing money. But of course, you've got big ambitions ahead. I know you're looking to double production in the year ahead. So frankly speaking, in light of that, I think many of us were quite surprised when your CEO, Peter Rawlinson, recently decided to step down. He's one of the best paid CEOs in the world. Tell me, what were the reasons for his sudden departure and why now?
I think Peter had about 12 years with the company. Peter set the company up. He is, what Lucid is today is because of him. I think, now the company is in a growth stage, and therefore, Peter decided to really, hand it over to the team that he has established to take it forward.
Mm-hmm. Was it a surprise at the time, though? Was it something you were expecting?
No, I think Peter has been preparing for this type of a departure.
Okay. I mean, obviously the news has been taken a little bit differently in various parts of the world. In the US, your country of origin, it was taken a little bit differently to your adopted country in Saudi. But it seems like production is full steam ahead in Saudi. Of course, you've recently introduced the Lucid Gravity. When we look at your production facility in Jeddah as well, you've got some incredible plans there. I think you plan to scale to produce 155,000 EVs annually within just 3 years. You've also recently been given the Made in Saudi badge. I would say it feels like things are going pretty well in the kingdom.
Yeah, very proud of the team, really, what we've been able to accomplish in Saudi Arabia. The first ever international manufacturing plant, for any type of automotive in Saudi. So that is an amazing, feat by itself. But then we're definitely going to move and expand on that. As you said, we're building a CBU factory now after the SKD assembly factory, and that is currently under construction. It's on time, and it's going to be completed as previously stated that by the end of next year. And we will be producing, it will have a capacity of 150,000, and we'll start producing some cars in early 2027 from there for global consumption. So that is going to be something that we look forward to. The Made in Saudi is a very prestigious thing, and it's a really emotional thing for our teammates out of Saudi Arabia, because they feel very proud, to be a part of history and to be the first automotive manufacturer that can say that we have a Saudi-made vehicle and which is now being exported to other countries. So there's a lot of emotional attachment, and even the public has perceived it as a medal.
I mean, congratulations, absolutely. But let's talk a little bit about electric vehicle adoption in the kingdom as a whole, because the government already obviously has some ambitious plans. They want 30% of all vehicles on Riyadh's roads by 2030 to be electric vehicles. And yet, historically, local adoption of EVs has been quite low. Tell me, where are the numbers? Where do they lie today? How many vehicles in Saudi are electric vehicles? How many of them are Lucids as well?
Yeah, our estimates are basically about 6 to 7% of our vehicles that are being sold in the country are already electric vehicles. But I think that's going to grow to 30% because of initiatives like Saudi Green Initiative that really puts in the drive, the motivation, the policies, all of them coming together. And we are seeing that. One of the biggest challenges when you talk about EV adoption is the infrastructure. And if the infrastructure is not there, it's not going to happen. So we're working with many companies, many partnerships that Lucid has. We're working with the government entities to make sure that the chargers are there. We have home solutions that we provide to make sure that people are comfortable when they take this car home, charge it at home at night, just like an iPhone. And in the morning, you have the car ready to be driven. And Lucid has the longest range vehicle, as you know, in the world. So basically, they are comfortable 98% of the time. They are comfortably charging at home.
Okay.
It's the other 2% of the time when you have to really go from Jeddah to Riyadh or Riyadh to Jeddah, where you really, really require the public charging infrastructure. So we're focusing on these key locations also with some of these entities to make sure that the charging is available there.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of that. When we consider the statistics, I think only around 7% of vehicles in Saudi are electric. And I think about 1% of vehicles last year were actually electric as well. Again, how many Lucids are actually on the roads in Saudi?
Well, we can definitely tell you that we are the number one, in our segment by far, and even when you compare it with internal combustion engines.
Okay.
So typically, our competitors will sell 500 plus vehicles. We're selling a lot more than that because people have this emotional connection with Lucid Motors because it's now manufacturing and assembled in Saudi Arabia. Plus the performance of the vehicle itself, and we have great deals. Our car, for some reason in the beginning, was assumed to be a very, very expensive car, but when you compare it to, S-Class or 7 Series, people are very surprised that this is very competitively priced.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on that in a minute because I think pricing is one of the big things as well. When we look at some of the barriers to adoption, picking up on what you were saying, obviously, about the installation of having the correct infrastructure in there, as we mentioned earlier, you got incredible long range, around 800 kilometers or so, certainly the longest in the market. We're still not seeing enough electric vehicle charging stations in the kingdom yet. How do we try and address some of these barriers? I think pricing is one point, and I want to ask you about that in just a moment, but also in terms of addressing consumer misconceptions as well as the charging facilities as well. Is there enough of a change that's going on? Obviously, we need a partnership, I think, with the government for that. Take us through some of those barriers. How are they being dealt with?
See, a lot of it is actually just the change itself, because a lot of people, are really worried about, because they're used to doing things a certain way. You have a car, you go to the gas station, you fill your gas anywhere. So, for them, it is an adopted way of living. And I think that's one of the things we have to really inform the consumer that how easy it is. As you said, 838 kilometers of range on a Lucid Air. You don't drive more than 600 kilometers in a week.
Sure, but you've got to have the right charging facilities for that. I know with the right one, you can get to about 400 kilometers recharged in 15 minutes. But does the current infrastructure, is that currently installed in Saudi?
Yeah, I think the focus should be at home charging.
Okay.
And it should not be on public charging. If people are thinking that they're going to be charging all the time on public charging, I think that's really the wrong way to think about charging. It should be on your home base. Yes, a lot of the people are living in apartment buildings and things like this with no dedicated parking spot. Fortunately for Lucid, because of the price that you talked about, we are in that luxury premium brand. So most of 99% of the people who are buying Lucid are buying it with a dedicated parking spot at their home. So it's very easy for them to take the free charger that we give them and the free installation that we give them to have that installed and charge their vehicle once. But I agree with you. We are going to move into more affordable models in the coming few years with the midsize. And if that's the case, then some of our consumers are also going to then require the public charging. And I think the key is, for the governments to really get involved and incentivize some of this, because the rate of return on these, because you don't have enough cars on the road. Therefore, not too many cars are going to go and hook up to the charger. Not hooking up to the charger means that there's profitability for the installer and the operator is going to take a long time. So the more cars on the road, the better for them.
Okay, but I don't know how it's affordable, whether it's necessarily affordable for everyone out there when we consider the pricing. I mean, I will say you have a superb product. Anyone I know who's been inside a Lucid really is absolutely mesmerized from it. But let's be frank here, it does not come cheap. If we look at the higher end of pricing of your high-end products, we're looking at around 1 million Saudi riyals. And even on the lower scale, 300,000 riyals, that's roughly around 100,000 US dollars. Don't you think there's an awful lot of competition from the luxury car market with more established brands?
Yeah, I think when you talk about 1 million riyal, that's actually something that is just built to order, and there's very few of them. So it's for really a car enthusiast who really wants that type of luxury, but also the world's fastest accelerating car, fastest charging, car, all of that. So they are willing to pay that, right? We are selling those in the quantities that we think we should be selling at. We're not going to sell thousands of that in a year. So we're okay with that. Our base model, which is, as you said, 299,000 reals or dirhams plus VAT, is very, very competitive. When you look at some of the competitors, when you put them on the same chart, you will see that the BMWs and the Mercedes are definitely higher priced than that. And once the consumer gets and looks at the performance of a Lucid, it's not a brand that's a 100-year-old brand. So then they realize that, look, yes, they're not a 100-year-old brand, but their product, unfortunately, is much higher quality. So we have to make the change. And we see a lot of this happening. As I said, people need to get into our cars. We need to do more marketing, and we need to really get that message out. And then people who are driving a Lucid becomes ambassadors. We call them ambassadors for a reason, because once they're in the car and they drive it, they go to their friends and say, hey, you know what? For 80,000 US dollars, 70,000 US dollars, you can get into a Lucid.
Sure, but Mr. Sultan, if I consider, Tesla, which I understand is your main competitor, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Tesla, they cap it at about 100,000 US for one of their products. Are you not considering potentially lowering your price in order to gain a larger market share?
We will, but not on this. But we don't really consider Tesla as our main competitor. Because if you look into a Lucid's interior and you look at the offerings that we have, how luxurious the car is, Tesla doesn't produce a car like that. They do have a technological electric vehicle, but that is really not the segment. Now, people do take that misconception and try to compare it, but it's an upgrade for a Model S person to come into a Lucid Air. They're upgrading.
Okay, themselves. So considering you don't see them as your biggest competitor, what are your thoughts? Are you concerned about Tesla officially potentially moving into the Saudi market this quarter?
No, I don't think so. I think, look, there's the Chinese, the BYDs, more competition is better, because it gives the consumer really, the difference. And I think we need to just continue to have our powertrain capabilities that are much higher. For example, our motors give you per kilogram more horsepower.
Sure, but again, to go back to the company is still operating at a loss. So even if you are presenting a more superior product, how do we ensure that it's still sustainable long term?
This is very normal in the beginning of any automotive company.
Well, we've been at 12 years now, haven't we? Is that still considered?
No, 12 years, we were a battery company.
Sure, yes, but there's been an evolution.
In car companies, I think we launched Lucid Air after 2020, so 2021. So we've only been in the market for 4 years, just to be correct.
And what are your thoughts then on moving to profitability then?
I think more product. We need the Gravity is coming out now. It's Lucid Air, as you know, we won the luxury car of the year 3 years in a row. Motor Trend 10 car of the year. 10 best car and driver. So now Gravity is getting great reviews. Actually, we got rating 100 out of 100 rating just last week on Gravity, and it's there's not enough significant quantities of gravities out there, but people are loving gravity, and I think gravity is going to re-emphasize and redefine what an SUV should be. And once that's out, I think we were going to solidify our positioning as a brand. And then the midsize, which is going to be produced out of the kingdom, AM2, Advanced Manufacturing Plant number 2, will definitely take us over the plateau.
Okay, so you say in all of this, production is key, and I'm going to ask you about your production facility in Jeddah in just a moment. But I also saw in a recent interview with Arabian Business, you said you see Saudi Arabia as a global automotive hub. So tell me, do you think that is true only for electric vehicles? Do you think it's more also accurate for the more mainstream internal combustion engines as well? And where does it compare to other markets, say the US, China, or Germany?
So I think, look, Saudi's been trying to do this for a while. And, Lucid gave them the opportunity to start that fire. And now that we have started that flame, we have Sierra, a sister electric company that is owned now by Saudi Arabia itself, First National Brand. And we have Hyundai, who has also signed a deal with them. So the 3 companies, the 2 companies EV, 1 company mixed, I think that will give them that 500,000 production units by 2030, around that time frame, and a capacity at least. And I think that will get the supply chain coming in, it will get the whole ecosystem developed, and then from there on, they can build on it. You could have 4 OEMs, 5 OEMs, they could be ICE, they could be EVs, they could be a mix. So I think this is the start they were looking for. And there's a huge gap. You have Morocco and you have Turkey and you have South Africa, but nothing in between, right? So I think they can fill that gap.
Well, let me pick up on what you were saying about SEER, because as we know, Saudi Arabia now has its first low-cost EV manufacturer there. I think they're expecting to begin production at the end of 2026. Are you concerned about that at all? Do you feel it's going to cannibalize your market share in the kingdom at all?
No. I think, look, when we are producing in the kingdom, it's not focused on the kingdom itself, right? So we're not going to sell 150,000 vehicles out of Saudi Arabia to the kingdom. It's going
How
to
many
go,
do you want to sell to the kingdom?
If I have to take a guess, I think at the most for full GCC, probably 12-13%.
And what about Saudi though?
So Saudi probably will be 7-8% out of that. But where it really helps us when the other OEMs come into play in Saudi Arabia is because now you have volumes to bring the supply chain. Supply chain actually makes you competitive. And when you are competitive in building, if I'm bringing all the parts from all over the world, I'm paying logistic costs. If they're being prepared and then manufactured in the kingdom, then I can have lower cost vehicles to export and be more competitive in European markets, in African markets, in Asian markets. And that's where we want to be. So we're working very closely with some of our other OEMs where we jointly try to see if we can get the supply chain come together to get the business from both of us.
I mean, as you're moving to fully integrated manufacturing in Saudi Arabia, are there clear milestones that you've put in place for Lucid there?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We have a full timeline of the construction. We follow that. There's a full dedicated construction team, program management team, third party.
Where are we at the moment then?
We are, as I said, we have the buildings are now
You're
up.
telling me there's painting going on, there's construction.
Exactly. So we have a lot of activity. If you look at the drone footage, I think we've been putting some of that on the social media. Every quarter, we bring in a new exciting video out to show the world how fast that progress is being made. If we go about 6 months ago, it was flat land, almost just few things happening, dirt moving around, and now you have steel up, walls up, or in some buildings the roof is up. So the next stage is to just start bringing the equipment in and start installing them and commissioning them. So we are on track, and the next 12, 13 months, it's going to be all about equipment.
Okay, so having the right production facilities is key, and so is having the right materials. We know that as we see more electric vehicles in our roads, we're also going to see a real need to be able to source more of these rare and green minerals. In fact, demand for these minerals is expected to increase by about 20-fold, I think, in the next 8 years. So tell me, where do you currently source these minerals for, particularly given, I think, the number of countries who actually have these minerals available, what you could count it on one hand?
Yeah. So I think, look, our suppliers really need those materials. We typically don't buy them directly as in a material form, raw form. But yes, we're keeping an eye on that. And we're very lucky because Saudi Arabia is also, as Vision 2030, looking at the mining and the minerals sector. And there has been rapid progression on the rare metals, nickel, aluminum. All of these materials are a core focus of the Saudi government, with Ma'aden signing up with the Australian companies. And I think that is going to really help our supply chain that comes in, because they can, from their backyard, start getting some of this rare material and produce the batteries for us, produce some of the rare element related metals for us, green metals. So I think that is going to help us in the long run.
Okay, so let me ask you about the lithium batteries in particular, because Saudi Arabia has recently announced it's discovered huge amounts of lithium. Does that impact you in any way? Because I think you currently source your lithium batteries from IG Chem. So moving forward, would you look at another alternative? Would you manufacture your own lithium batteries in the kingdom? Would you look at partnering with a Saudi organization? Particularly, we've seen that big announcement from Saudi Aramco recently. It's looking to move into lithium processing technology with Ma'aden.
We're open to all these partnerships. Currently, we buy it from LG Chem and Samsung and Panasonic. And Samsung and Panasonic are the two biggest suppliers for our batteries right now. And we will continue to buy from them. But we are, for the Saudi project, we are open to have another partner. There is some discussions that...
Would that be a local partner, a Saudi partner?
And I don't think it'll be a local partner. It will be a big name that is probably going to have a JV type of a setup in Saudi. And it doesn't have to be one of those big three, because what we are trying to do is gauge how fast the battery technology in some of the other countries are coming up. So yes, the Japanese and the Koreans were the leaders on this, but now you have the Chinese and you have the others that are really coming. So commercially feasible and localized, having them in Saudi, those are the things that we're looking for. And there are some discussions going on between certain entities in Saudi and these partners. And once that deal is finalized, they will announce it for sure. And we will start buying from them. So that's really the plan. And we are also open to new technologies. We're looking at those too.
Well, let's talk about some of the health hazards surrounding lithium batteries, because we know that used or defective batteries can have huge environmental factors, big health and safety risk as well. Tell me, how do you currently recycle your used batteries? And do you think there is enough awareness about the need to be able to recycle them? I think you can recycle around 80% of them.
Yeah, I think the awareness is the key there. Actually, some studies have shown that 95% of these batteries now can be recycled. The cost to recycle needs to come down, which it is. Over, if you go 5-6 years ago, it was a tremendous effort to get these things recycled. But we are getting a lot of, let's say, development happening, a lot of more companies jumping into this. And we've also talked to a company that actually is interested to have in our backyard in Saudi, having a recycle factory of their own. So, it's those type of partnerships that we are looking, connections that we can have these companies come out, settle with us in the auto park, the King Salman Auto Park now in the King Abdullah Economic City. And that basically will really help us to take these batteries back and recycle. The awareness is a key, because a lot of people are worried about this, but there are ways to recycle them at a very cost-effective way now. There is a secondary life to these batteries. It's not like, you take them and then all of them go into garbage or dumpster. No, there's a secondary life. You have the tools, you have the two-wheelers, three-wheelers. There's a usage of these. So the life cycle of these batteries is now being extended. And I think that is going to continuously develop as we see more uses.
And that's the thing. I think the life cycle is one thing. There's also the financial side as well of being able to recycle them in a safe way, but also to be able to resell some of these very rare minerals too.
Yes, and then it's happening, right? So there are companies in UK and in Germany and US that are already doing that sell the material back to LG Chems and Panasonics, and they reuse some of this material. So I think the more awareness, the more development, I think you will see a more circular cycle.
When we talk about a more circular cycle, what about ensuring that a lot of these minerals are sourced ethically as well? There's some big tech giants who are coming out talking about the importance of having a battery passport to making sure that our supply chains, that child labour is not involved, that the environment is taken care of as well. Is that something that you're looking at too?
Oh, definitely. Lucid is all about ESG, and we actually have published our how ethical sourcing is so important for us. We've looked at it. It's one of the main selecting criteria for our supply chain, and that is why we're working with Samsung and Panasonic, because the way they are handling some of the things, where they're getting their material, we look very deeply into that, and then we decide. We don't just go to the most commercial, feasible, cheapest supplier. So we'll continue to do that, because I think it's very important. On one hand, we want electric vehicles on the road, and we're telling the story that let's be more sustainable. So we got to follow that through our supply chain.
Okay, well, as we look at expansion plans, tell me, where do we go from here? There's now a Lucid showroom that's been added in Dubai. I saw last year Dubai Police has now added a Lucid to the Dubai Police fleet as well. Where else are you looking at? Expanding more across the UAE, Egypt, Turkey? What's your forecast?
Well, the current focus is really within GCC. That's where we want to focus on, because the market for a luxury four-door sedan and an SUV, a luxury full-size SUV, is the strongest in, let's say, UAE, Saudi, Kuwait, Qatar. So this is basically where we are going to be concentrating in the next 3-4 years. We will definitely short term, we're expanding. Last year we expanded in Jeddah. We also expanded, as you said, here in Dubai. We're going to have another showroom, a larger showroom in Dubai this year. We actually haven't told, this is the first time I'm actually saying that. So this year we're going to do that also.
Do you have a location for that yet?
We are very close.
Okay.
Yeah, to getting a location, final stages. So once we have that, we will definitely have a flagship studio available in Dubai. We're also looking at Abu Dhabi. We're looking at more locations in KSA. So we'll strengthen our footprint, because our current customers, quite literally, we've been so astonished by the adoption of Lucid vehicles that we really need to grow in these areas first. And once we can do that, then we will start growing within the GCC area.
And what are those other locations in Saudi?
In Saudi, Riyadh is our biggest market.
Sure.
And we want to have a couple of more locations in Riyadh. On the eastern province, in Dammam, Al-Khabar area, we don't have a presence, so we're definitely going to have a presence there. Jeddah, we're increasing some of the footprint also there. And then basically, those are the cities right now. And because they cover 90% of our market. And then we will come to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and then, go outwards.
Well, Mr. Sultan, thank you very much for your time today. Fascinating to hear about the expansion plans, and wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.